This is the Ben Shear Golf Podcast, where we will be talking science, fitness, and everything golf performance. Welcome to the Ben Shear Golf Podcast. Super excited about today's episode. We are talking about motor learning. What's motor learning, you may ask? Motor learning is just learning. We all trying to learn to swing the club better. We are learning to move our bodies better. We're learning to do whatever we're trying to do to hopefully, at the end result, lower our golf scores. That's what it's all about. That's what golf performance is all about. And we've studied tons about biomechanics. We've studied about the body. We have cool technology and diagnostic tools. But all of that is just information. That is not learning. So we got to learn how to learn. So today I have two guests joining me today. One is my buddy John Dunigan, who's a PGA professional. And he's going to talk to us about the practical side of how you implement this as a teacher, or how if you're a student, you wanted to learn more information, you can kind of get it on your own. But we're going to kick this off with my man Will Wu. Will is associate professor at Long Beach and Cal State, isn't that correct? And the director of research at the Center for Sports Training and Research. He is involved in teaching people how to learn. And they've started a program together called the Skilled Coaching Alliance, where John and Will have partnered up. And it's an online course where they're basically teaching teachers how to get their students to actually learn, not just teach them information. So, Will, welcome to the show.
My pleasure to be here, Ben. Major props to you for the leaps and bounds that you've had to go through to make this happen.
Yeah, if people only knew the technical struggles that we have. But I'm excited that we're finally, hopefully, going to get this done. And I think it's such an important topic. Like I said, we have so much great information on so much other parts of golf instruction, like the actual information piece, the physical piece, the biomechanical piece. But at the end of the day, the reality is it's still less than 10% of all golfers out there who can shoot under 100 consistently. And that, to me, with all the information we have, that's not acceptable. And the fact with the advancements of information, the advancements in technology, all of the things that have come along over the last bunch of years, the fact that the average golfer hasn't gotten exponentially better tells us there's a missing piece. And motor learning, in my opinion, is that missing piece.
Absolutely. So if we think about cooperative team environments in terms of optimizing performance, you have multiple disciplines. It's a multivariate problem or issue that you have to deal with. And we're at a really good time right now in golf in terms of what we have in terms of technology that Ben mentioned. We could do 3D kinematics, we could do 3D ground reaction forces. You name it, launch monitors, what the ball is doing, what the club is doing, you name it, we can pretty much measure it these days, right? And we have a variety of research as it pertains to golf biomechanics, what you should and shouldn't do, very, very detailed in nature. We have strength practitioners who are designing strength programs and movement programs for players also. But I think where we're severely lacking, and especially if you look at it in terms of what we see on online, blogs, social media, etc., is an understanding for how we acquire movement skills or motor skills. And I think with what John and I are doing with the Skilled Coaching Alliance is providing a formal kind of introduction in science and how you not only a description of what the science is all about and all the different concepts associated with it, but most importantly is how do you apply it? How do you make your students better? Or even if you're a player, how do you become better as a player? And I think when I look at in general, and just for the sake of the time that we have here, I'll just highlight 2 points that I think are really, really important that we should really look at as it relates to learning is related to the fact that people don't know how to practice. And number 2, how we view the instructional environment. And we kind of talk about this a lot, Ben, is what we're doing with instruction or how we're making players better. What are the tools that we can actually use where we can get a significant, or not even a significant improvement, but at least a small improvement, a measurable improvement in terms of how people do in a tournament setting or in a competition setting. And I think a couple of different ways that we can look at it from a general standpoint is how instructors design their learning environment, let me take that back, not their learning environment, but their lesson environment, and how players, right now, at least right now, they're designing their own learning environments, their own practice environments. And so it's a really just looking at lessons in, well, I will say how lessons are done these days, and probably different from how most people view lessons, is I don't view lessons as a learning experience.
It's a teaching experience.
Correct. It's an experience of information exchange. Now, I'm not going to go out and say there's no learning that's occurring in a lesson, but there's very little learning that's occurring in a lesson. And the question is why, right? Why is that? And it's mainly, if you look at the structure of lessons, it's, how many times, do you know the average, I don't know this number, but do you know the average number of lessons that the average golfer gets in a 1 month period?
I don't know. Look, I think that there are certainly people who are taking lessons, some people even multiple lessons a week. And then there are people who never take a lesson, right? They're just like, oh, I'm not going to get better from a lesson. And look, maybe Correct. The people who said, oh, I'm not going to get better maybe they're actually the smart ones. I hate to say that, and my golf pro friends are now going to hate me for saying that. And look, I happen to be fortunate to be friends with a lot of great instructors out there, right? But I think that this part is a part that those instructors are seeking, right? They're seeking to better understand the motor learning, and that's what makes them great instructors. But I don't think that's certainly the norm by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, whether you have a high frequency of lessons or a low frequency of lessons, if you look at the overall picture, right, of skill development, and that's what we're really talking about, developing your golf skills. If you look at the entire picture of skill development within an amateur player or a professional player, most of it occurs without the instructor, right? And so if you think about that, that really helps us to structure a lesson in a manner that's different from if we think that the lesson is a learning environment. So what I mean by that is that if we look at the lesson as an exchange of information, we have to view the lesson as, or we have to view the strategies in which we communicate information about the swing. We have to look at it in an entirely different way, right? Because what we have to be responsible for and accountable for is when they're not at the lesson anymore, they're on the practice facility or in their tournament, can they use the information that you gave them in the lesson? Can they use it in an accurate and meaningful way, right? That's two things, a meaningful way and an accurate way. And so we know, right, in the motor control learning research that there's a difference between providing information, movement-related information, and asking people to remember it or to learn it, right, or to make it adaptable. There's a difference between how we give movement-related instruction to how we give instruction related to the immediate effects of the movements. And so the general concept is called focus of attention. And if you're familiar with the literature, the terms internal and external focus of attention will be familiar to you. If not, it's basically when you're swinging the golf club, should you think about your body and how you're moving your body, or should you think about the effects of your body parts? So, for example, like what you're doing to the handle of the club, or what you're doing to the face of the club, right? Or what type of ball or what type of spin you're putting on the ball. It could vary just depending on what the problem is. But that's one method, right, among many methods that instructors can leverage within a lesson environment.
Let's time out one sec. Let's just give a simple example that people maybe can understand. Like instead of saying turn your shoulders or get a bigger shoulder turn, you might say turn the buttons of your shirt to face that tree or whatever it is that may be out there, and the person can understand. Oh, turn the buttons on my shirt to that tree. That's a really easy thing for the brain to understand and your body to execute. Turn your shoulders, get your shoulders steeper, those type of things. Those are internal, where the buttons on the tree are external.
Absolutely. So, how John and I actually use that external cue quite a bit in terms of trunk rotation and trunk position and all that. But it's amazing. Like, it might sound super silly, right? When you're saying, okay, turn your shoulders this way compared to turn the buttons on your shirt this way. Some of you might be listening and saying, are you kidding me? That's like super simple. That's almost like stupid simple. And I'll say, exactly, that's stupid simple. But there's like high quality, good research that's going into that demonstrates a significant outcome and physiological difference between the two types of instructions, right?
Yeah.
And then you just think about that in relation to the amount of biomechanical data that we have about the swing, right? You can go to any seminar, or not any seminar, but there are a lot of seminars available to you. There are a lot of pieces of technology available to you that will give you biomechanics of the swing, right? But here's the main point. The main point is that an analysis is entirely different from instructing the swing, right? Analysis is a descriptor of how the swing is being executed, and an instruction is when you translate that analysis. So if we're saying turn your shoulders, or your shoulders need to be turned more, I view that as more of kind of an analysis type of information. Whereas if we're translating that using the motor control learning research or concepts, and we're saying, I want you to turn the buttons of your shirt this way, that's translating biomechanical information into usable information that the player can duplicate on the range or duplicate in a competition style setting. And there's very little, at least as far as the research will say, there's very little wiggle room for this. The research is overwhelming, right? It doesn't matter if you say, oh, it only works in beginners. Well, it works in experts too, right? Oh, it only works for speed power activities. Oh, it actually works for endurance activities too, right? Oh, it only works in disabled communities or populations. Oh, it works for able-bodied communications or populations too. Right. So it works in all these different populations, regardless of task skill, whatever it is. It's really overwhelming the research. So from an applied standpoint, if you know that there's a body of evidence that says you should not be giving instructions based around movements, how can you keep on instructing people that are based around movements,
right? So let's call time out for a second here. So a couple things. Number one is, we're not saying that understanding biomechanics isn't important. Those are still the factors that you're trying to manipulate. And having good knowledge of kinetics, kinematics, golf swing, ball flight laws, club, impact alignments, all of those things are critical. It's just how you talk about them and how you go about getting people to make these changes and acquiring a new skill is what's different. This is not a instead of, it's an also.
Absolutely. So I always say it's this. I say, in order to get high quality performance with skill acquisition, what I need when I work with my players or my athletes, I say, I need good ingredients. And the good ingredients come from either the coach or the biomechanist that says, this is what I want the player to do, right? And what I do is I apply a recipe, right? I call it a recipe of training or a recipe of practice. So one can't exist without the other. The ingredients come from the analysis, the mechanics of the swing, and the recipe is in a sense made from motor control and motor learning principles. And if you have those two together, you get much better performance, right?
Assuming you have good ingredients.
Exactly. Right. So we can you have to have good ingredients. It's funny that you say that.
Like, right? You have a recipe and it's all crappy ingredients, it's going to be pretty crappy.
If the food is spoiled, right, you have the best chef in the world working with spoiled food, it's not going to taste all that great.
Great.
And so the two have to go together. So I'm glad that you bring that up. I don't minimize the role of any discipline within sport performance. And most people who know me and have worked with me before know that I very much view sport performance as pieces of a pie rather than one individual making all the decisions. But I think that's a really good example, right? I just use that as one example. Is focus of attention the end all be all of instruction? Absolutely not. There are many different ways, but I'm just going to use this as an example of the importance of in the instructional environment in viewing it as a way of communicating information rather than a learning environment, right?
Yeah.
And so if we can communicate effectively within the learning environment by leveraging these motor control learning principles, the likelihood of the player taking this information into a practice situation or tournament situation is going to be higher, that it's going to be accurate, that they can retain this information, right? And so then they can practice it. They can create a practice environment with the accurate information that was portrayed in the lesson.
Yeah.
Now the second part of it is people suck at practicing.
Sure.
And I'll just say it that way, right? And most people do a lot of repetition of the same thing. And then if you think that you're familiar with the learning literature, the motor learning literature, and you go, oh no, of course not. That's, I read some blog, I read some article, I read some papers that said you never do a lot of repetitions of something over and over again. You want to switch all the time, right? Because in golf, how many times do you hit the same shot? So you never want to practice that way.
Right. So we call the repetition of the same shots over and over again. We call that block practicing, and we call on the other extreme of that, changing every single swing you take on the practice range. We would call that random practicing.
Correct. So if you're familiar with that literature, great. If you're not familiar with that literature, you could just call it switching all the time and doing the same thing or switching on every swing, or not switching on everything, doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
There's been this conversation that you always switch, because in golf you never hit the same shot twice, right? And you never do the other thing where you spend a lot of reps doing the same thing over and over and over again. And that's an oversimplification of the data and the research. It would be like me saying to Ben, I know resistance training is good, right? And it increases sport performance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the gym for as many hours during the day as I can, and I'm going to lift as much weight as possible, because that's better for me than not lifting any weights at all, right? And if I were to say that to you, Ben, what would be the Ben Shear way, or the Ben Shear response to that?
What are you, an idiot?
Exactly. And so I think I'm a nicer guy than Ben, so I don't call people idiots. But I look at that.
Joking.
Absolutely. It's always fun. But I look at that oversimplification of resistance training the same way as I look at the oversimplification of people just saying random and block practice. Yeah. It's more to it. It's more to it than that, right? And so we get one way where people just don't have any idea. And when I mean any idea about the evidence, right? The scientific evidence that we have of how people should practice, compared to what little is out there, and the oversimplifications that people are making about how they should practice based on a misinterpretation of the data.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's interesting, and where some of the struggle within this is, like, look, the golf industry is a business, as we all know. We're in the golf business. You're in it. I'm in it. And everybody's trying to make a living. Everybody's got their place in this. The student has certain preconceived notions and expectations, and that golf lessons traditionally are based around a result that ends within that 1 hour, let's call it, instruction session, right? Where you go in, I got X problem, I'm slicing it, I'm hooking it, I'm topping it, whatever. I can't make solid contact. And that the job of the teacher in the moment is to have you leave not doing that X, whatever it was that you were doing, and feeling like you're now better, right? Somehow you're now better at golf, which maybe you got rid of X, but that doesn't mean you're actually better at golf. The student rarely translates that out to where it really matters, which is rounds of golf, score, whatever the case may be, right? So they feel like, hey, the teacher feels like, hey, I had you hitting it better at the end of the lesson, and if you didn't get better shooting lower scores, well, that's kind of your fault, not my fault. I did my job. Right. And their job is to have you come back and sell you another lesson. That makes the club happy. That's how they put money in their pocket. Look, feed the family. And like from an information standpoint, they may have given you good, quote unquote, information. But that is still different than learning. And part of it is, for all of us from an education standpoint, is changing the whole philosophy of lessons and having people start understanding it's not about that hour. It's actually about the end game, which is how we must start judging that hour of lesson, not that you hit it better and or worse within that hour.
Yeah, and this is what I see. This is my view from what I see. I get to see a variety of coaches, expertise level, like different, like good coaches, poor coaches, and a variety of different sports, right? But when I look at golf coaches, there are some really good golf coaches. They understand this. They're saying they know that I can get my player better within a session, and it's an easy thing. But I need to do something when they leave me. I need to design something, or something needs to be done to where they're practicing and training in the right way. And the good and golf instructors are aware of this right now. They're ready, like they have their methods, whatever, whether it be things that they learn in seminars, um, calling, like working with me or something along those lines, but they're already thinking along those lines, right? So there are some like really good instructors who are thinking along those lines already. But in terms of whether it's like it had from a more broader perspective, I think most people are just satisfied with changes within the lesson. And
That's how they get you to come back, right? I mean, that's how they sell you
correct,
another lesson.
correct.
And and I think unfortunately the student also, if they don't translate it to the course, blames themselves, which is not necessarily
Yes.
their fault. So I mean, the actual system itself actually works great for the coach, to be honest, to
Or,
actually to fail the student in a way.
or you know what they'll do, Ben? Um, what they'll do is they'll say, I stripe it in my lesson, right? I might stripe it for a period of time and practice, but I go out and play with my buddies in a match, or I go and play in a tournament, and I can't do it, right? They'll say that, and I'll
Yeah,
go, well, why
I
can't I
can't take
do
it
it?
to the course.
Yeah, and then they'll say, I can't take it to the course. So they say, it must be a psychological thing, right? And
Sure.
they'll say that, and I'll go, before you go there, and psychology is extremely important in sport performance, but you have to diagnose the problem accurately. So the first thing you have to do is, well, what is your training and skill development process like? Because I can design an environment where people get fast, or people get good at something really fast, but that's at the expense, right, of transfer or retention or learning or being able to reproduce it in a match or in a tournament, right? And oftentimes we have a variety of motor learning concepts or paradigms where you don't get fast right away, right? But when you train properly using these concepts, you retain the information much better in the long term, and in like what we call transfer environments, when you're asked to adapt the skill.
Awesome.
And so a lot of the times we're pinpointing the problem, and it's a practice and training problem. It's an instructional problem. We're pinpointing it as purely psychological. I mean, psychological, like emotional states, arousal levels, that sort of thing, right? We're pinpointing it as that. It's a wrong diagnosis. It's a diagnosis of poor training or poor practice.
Right. Makes total sense. All right. So let's do this. I'm going to wrap it up here with you. We're going to take a little bit of break, and then we're going to get into, I'm going to bring John on, who's your partner in the Skilled Coaching Alliance, and from a golf teacher's perspective, how he's taken all the stuff that you've taught him and actually brings it to his day-to-day job, which is how do I teach the average person, the elite player, juniors, you name it, how do I take all this cool science and actually, as a golf pro, teach people to play the game of golf and actually get them to learn what I'm teaching them. So I appreciate you coming on, dude. As always, amazing information. Everybody out there, definitely check Will out on social media. Find him at the Skilled Coaching Alliance. Will, as always, I appreciate it, buddy.
My pleasure, Ben. Anytime, bud.
All right, we'll be right back with John Dunigan.
Do you want to take your body and game to the next level? Do you want to get a program from the best in the business the same way tour players do, but don't have access or the finances to do it? Finally, Ben Shear Golf is offering various online training options for players just like you. Now you too can have access to the best golf fitness has to offer online, and at a price you can afford. For more information, go to our website, www.bensheargolf.com, to learn more. That is www.bensheargolf.com. SHEAR to spell shear.
Hi, I'm Ben Shear, PGA Tour trainer, Golf Digest fitness advisor, and host of The Golfer's Edge on SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio. So when I first saw these sticks, I knew I had to get involved.
three huge benefits from this type of program. Number one, it's going to allow us to get our club and our body in positions to have a consistent, efficient, and effective golf swing. Number two, it's going to reduce our risk of injuries. And number three, the big thing everyone is looking for, it's going to allow us to hit the ball that much further.
Welcome back. So we've been talking about motor learning here with Will Wu and kind of the science of how people learn. But obviously, as golfers and instructors out there, the more important part is, how do I actually take this scientific information? How do I apply it both to my student and to myself, both to be a better teacher and make swing changes and play better golf? So now we're going to kind of jump to the other side of this motor learning continuum. And now my buddy John Dunigan is going to be joining us. John is the director of instruction at Applebrook Golf Club. He's also involved with the Skilled Coaching Alliance with Will, where they're teaching people how to learn and use this information. So, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Ben.
Yeah, John. So, obviously, so much over the years has been taught about mechanics, about body stuff. We have all this awesome technology. So we have great information, better information probably than we've ever had in the history of the game. But the question is, information doesn't inherently make you better, right? It's what you do with that information that makes you better, or doesn't make you better for that matter, right? So tell me a little bit about, from a coaching perspective, how can people take this awesome motor learning science and start applying it to the use of technology, to working with students? Like, how do you even start thinking about putting all this together?
That's a great question, and you actually teed it up perfectly. We must have rehearsed this a few times.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my favorite slides whenever I give presentations around the country is Einstein, and he says, "Learning is experience. Everything else is just information," which really helps shape the perspective of how we help people try to make their way in the game. So if we can keep that in mind, our job as coaches and our job as developing players is to give ourselves meaningful experience that our brain can learn from. That's the basic. I could sum up the entire thing with that. And then the motor learning science helps us go, okay, well, here's an example from a golf and body just yesterday. Here's a student that has very serious contact problems. 25 handicap, has been that way for 19 years, he said. And he cannot control where I could go in and look at all of his mechanics, and I could look at his ground forces. I could look at any number of mechanical things, but perhaps I should start out with defining what comprises solid contact. And we had this exact discussion in front of the entire group yesterday. And your old pal Debbie was saying, look, centeredness of hit. I'm like, clearly correct. The second one is where the club bottoms out. And I defined it right there. Okay, it's the low point. It's not the low point of your career. It's where the club, the arc of the swing, bottoms out. So we have that discussion. We ask the student, where should it bottom out? And he doesn't have an answer. He's not sure.
Right.
So
his understanding even to start making a change, he has no even sense of what's supposed to happen.
Right. How can we start changing things like any kind of kinematics in the swing, any kind of kinetics, when the golfer's mind isn't clear on what's supposed to happen? So we always start with what's the intended effect rather than how to do it. And that comes back to what I call tool use. And what I see is everybody's going to the hard stuff first, which in my, as far as our skill coaching group goes, that the body stuff is usually last. It's going to start with, what do you want? What's wrong with your golf ball? How's your club creating that unwanted outcome? Let's go focus on using the club better. And then people will make rapid progress because they're actually finally not focused on where's my elbow, but focus on where my club needs to hit the ground. And most golfers, if you think of, I teach a lot of really high level golfers, but that doesn't count because it's not the society at large of golfers. Most golfers are still trying to hit the damn ball.
For sure.
I tell them, that's not your job. Your job is to swing the club. the club hits the ball. And if you're doing the club's job, nobody's doing your job, and you suck.
And that's the reality is that is the majority of amateur golfers in this country, right? We know only 10% of all amateur golfers break 100 on a consistent basis, right? So it's like golf's a pretty hard game. I mean, that's the reality of it, or is perceived to be hard. Maybe should I say more so than it actually is hard. But these people are going through that, and I think one of the interesting things you said, obviously being a body guy, is you said we teach what the club should do. We don't worry about the body. But from a learning perspective and the body's perspective, it's about the body will react and do what it's supposed to do based on the things you're doing. You still have to have the capability to do it physically, but oftentimes not thinking about the body and thinking about the club and how you're swinging or whatever the things that we're going to continue to talk about do, the body is reactionary to those things.
I'm going to kiss you right on top of the head next time I see you.
Oh, thank you.
Listen, I tell people, listen, I don't care what your wife says. You ain't stupid. Your brain knows how to move, right? It knows how to get you moving. And when you give it the instruction of how to move, it actually, in my layman's take on it, confuses your body. But when I say, hey, put your club over here, your brain's like, sure, I can do that right away. But as soon as I get somebody hell-bent on externally rotating the trail shoulder, that's when everything breaks down, right? So if we can keep people as far as we can toward using the golf club and let their brain work their body around to deliver the club, that's sort of like how we do it. My wife is a fantastic painter, and she can paint up this way, and she can paint this way, and she can paint this way, and she can get up and paint way up here, and she's not thinking about how to paint. She's just doing painting. And I wholeheartedly believe after 30 some years in this business, that's what's missing from golf is people aren't painting. They're trying to figure out how to move still. And it's
yeah, look, I mean, and I think one of the interesting things you're saying, and I want to take a step back for a second. So, obviously there's a lot of probably people who love mechanics out there. I am a person who loves mechanics, and I know that you're even a person who loves mechanics and loves kinetics and kinematics and all that stuff. Like we're not saying that those things aren't valuable to understand. They are super valuable to understand. But how you go about changing them is what we're really talking about, right? Like if you don't know what the effect you're trying to get, it's very hard to figure out the process to get there. So understanding the underlying mechanics, understanding what's supposed to happen is where we start, and people should understand and study mechanics. But what you also have to understand and study is how do you actually change those mechanics without talking in mechanical speak, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Right. So that's a great point. So the education that I've gotten from ground force study, through Swing Catalyst, through Penn State and Dr. Kwan, the education I've gotten from you, we've seen each other many times, Phil Cheatham, body kinematics, Sasha with the force at the handle, that's invaluable information. I no question, and maybe I'm not making it clear that stuff is extremely valuable to me. Like
yeah. I just wanted to go back and make sure like people don't think that we just think that magically good things happen if you don't really understand the underlying things that you're trying to affect, right? That those things are equally important, but they are also not what we use as the driver to teach. Teaching is a different thing, and it's about creating a response, but you still need to understand this response you're trying to get, I guess.
Yeah, that no doubt. Yesterday, another lesson, just as fresh in my mind from yesterday, is a high level player, and he's got too much thrust in his golf swing, and his comment was, "I've tried changing what the club does, trying to get the shaft to do something different, and it doesn't work." And so I look at his ground forces, and I give him this. On the backswing, I want you to step on the gas under your right shoe, gas pedal under the right shoe. And I want you to put a cigarette butt out under your left heel of your left shoe at impact. So he's kind of going toe heel, if you will, but I don't use that. I use gas and the cigarette butt, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to keep it external. I don't want internal body part focus. unless I have no resort, which means I'm not doing my job well enough.
Yeah, just to be clear, so people aren't sure, when we say internal and external cueing, internal cueing is anything that's happening within the body, and external cueing is anything that's happening outside of the body. Just for definition.
Is it body part focused, like turn your shoulders, or is it put a stick across somebody's shoulder? Well, I use take your shirt buttons and turn them over your right sneaker. You know, that's the difference. Turn your shoulders is internal, and it's there's a ton of research. Thank you, Dr. Wu, that says that this internal focus is much less effective than take your shirt buttons and turn them over your shoe.
Yeah.
So whenever we can, keep it external.
And that spatial reference I think you gave is important also, right? Turn it over your shoe. Turn your, look at the back wall, whatever it is, depending on your environment. But creating a external reference with a spatial awareness, the brain really understands, oh, your shoe, the wall, the ground, whatever the case may be. Easy for the brain.
Very easy for the brain. It's my layman's take on it. I know this is not 100% accurate, but it's akin to this. We can talk about muscle co-contraction if you want, but I'd rather skip that one. But anyway, when you tell yourself, hey, point your shirt buttons over your shoe, your brain's like, well, hell, that's a perfectly easy motion for me. But when you tell your brain, okay, I need to get my shoulders turned, or then we can start getting really mean and going, I need to get this left shoulder down and turn it 90 degrees, that now it's almost like your brain gets clouded up and it's thinking about how to move instead of just, oh, heck, I can do that. That's why when you use an external focus of attention, you can get somebody to change. Like that one guy changed in one golf swing. And then we had a meaningful video and the force plate data. We saw a immediate change in his movement with 2 stupid cues. And one on the back, one on the downswing.
And I think one of the things awesome about technology like, swing catalyst is you can teach this way. And something like a swing catalyst is showing you immediately, did that cue that I gave give me the response I want or not? Right? It's like it's giving you the feedback, the answer to the question, right? You don't have to talk about, ground forces and verticals and horizontals or any of this stuff. You do the whatever it is, turn your turn your buttons over your shoe, and then just see what happened to those things, right? And it gives you a feedback, which is a great way to do it. And it actually just becomes a feel measurement tool more so than anything else, but verifies your work as, wow, that was a really good external cue for this person. Or you know what? Maybe I got to give them something different. So that feedback also is super valuable in this type of environment.
When I have to the most fun lessons for me is when I really have to dig deep and find a brand new cue for somebody. That's really cool.
Right. So we've talked a little bit now about external cueing and that you got to find these ways to teach motion with external cues versus the other. One of the big things we often hear about in motor learning in the golf world, is people think that they have actually studied motor learning or pretend they have because they've read one book or something. And I've read many and by no means, would sit here and claim myself to be an expert. But the one thing you always hear over and over again, and I know this is a big hot topic, is, oh, you got to do random practice. Block practice is no good, right? That's the motor learning that most golf pros do. So you should hit a different shot every time. You should use a different club. The fact that you're hitting, 10 7-irons or whatever it is in a row is why you're not getting better, because that's not how it really works in golf, blah, blah. Let's talk a little bit about, is block practice ever good? And if it's good, when and where do we do block? And when and where do we do randomized?
Okay, you got 2 questions in there.
Yep.
I'll start with the internal versus external. The problem with internal focused body parts is called muscle co-contraction. When you tell your arm to externally rotate, right, your brain will give you that, but it'll kind of lock down. It'll contract the muscles around that joint. That's why it's not so effective. So I might use, hey, hold up the pizza tray, right? Totally different image. I'm still getting the external rotation in the shoulder, but in a very brain-friendly kind of way to do it.
Right, skip a stone, whatever. All those types.
Yeah,
terms.
all that stuff, all good. Underarm frisbee throw that we did in Ultimate Frisbee back in the college days. All that creates that motion in a much more lower cognitive load, which is a big deal, I don't want people overthinking. In fact, I don't want them to think too much at all. I want them to have some kind of image-rich sensation that gets things clear to them. And then the external focus is just so much quicker, and that's good hard science behind that. Okay, so one of our rules is keep it external when you can, go internal only when you are stuck and cannot help this person.
Right.
Usually there's something else that we can do if we really dig deep and try to find a new way, a new use of it. And sometimes Will tell you that he'll go, okay, you need to go get these feet on the ground faster, go figure it out, see what you can come up with. And then again, to your point, now we use, the kinematics, a K-Vest or AMM or whatever system you're using, golf biodynamics, force plate, single, dual, whatever measurement system to validate whether that cue was useful or not. And I think very important for everyone listening is that doesn't mean the golfer hits it better right away. He might have mishit the golf ball. But if we saw a genuinely different movement toward the correct motion we're trying to create, that's good enough for me, right?
Yeah, sure. Early stage learning. Move the needle in the right direction.
One, yeah, right. Like everybody thinks that you've got to get the person better in front of you. And that's one of those things that is absolutely misguided. What I want, because I don't give a crap if people hit the ball good in front of me. If I can't do that, I probably shouldn't be doing my job.
Right.
That's not the answer. The answer is that this person has the tools and information to create a learning experience on their own when I'm not there.
Okay, so now I've gone through this external learning. I kind of have what I'm supposed to think about, my external cues, and now I got to practice. I got to get better at golf. So do I do my block? Do I do my random? Like, what do I do? When do I do it? How do I do it?
Well, that's a great question, and we have a really good answer for you. I just love this. Will came up with this, not me. If you're asking whether block is better or random is better, the answer is it's the wrong question. There are no, in all of the research that's been done with that, for one, they're mixing up cognitive learning, like remembering word lists, because that's valuable to a golfer, with motor learning. These are two different fields, and I don't think you can't draw from one to the other, I don't believe, because we're talking a completely different approach to what people are trying to do. Remembering word lists isn't trying to hit a 340-yard drive.
Right. So
after 2 hits.
So do I?
So
what
now,
do I do?
If we're getting into that,
yeah,
block practice is fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. In fact, if I'm trying to get somebody to, Ben, you've been on a PGA Tour driving range. I have as well.
Many times.
That is called triage. Block practice, when that golfer is struggling, I'm not looking for learning. I'm looking for a fast change that golfer can take onto the golf course right now. You can bet your butt that block practice is the order of the day. If I've got a high-level player that has no clue where this golf ball is going, and I give him random practice, right, he's got nothing to go to that first tee with. But if I let him block it, sort of what I call calibrate his feel, that's extremely valuable. A beginner may need massive amounts of block practice, but even a professional, all the way, it's a continuum. You're going to divide up the amount of block versus random. It's not one or the other, because you can do mini blocks and change it, and it's mini random. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it
for
really
sure.
Depends on where we're at.
Right. So I think that people have taken this random thing way too far, and
Yeah,
people don't do enough block to actually make changes. And I've worked obviously not just in golf. I mean, I work with a really brilliant guy in the diving world, and we've had some of our divers go to the Olympics and stuff like that. And he's got a PhD in sports psychology and motor learning and all this stuff. And he basically, in a sport like that where you're just peaking for that one event, he basically starts with block. The further out he has more block. And then he slowly goes to some block and some random. And then as he gets very close to competition, he goes to more random at the end. Right? So he basically has a continuum of time. And obviously golf, especially on the PGA Tour, is a little bit different. where they're in the Olympics, you're just trying to peak for that one event. So he kind of has a continuum that works that way. But for the typical golfer, I mean, really, how much is value do you have to put into any one week, unless it's your club championship or whatever you're playing? I think you can find a way to kind of do it. And like you said, if you're just really struggling and need to have that feel to take to the tee, you're not going to get that by hitting 30 different shots in a row.
Nope, you're probably going to get worse. So when we're looking at that sort of thing, block versus random, I think we should just stop even discussing it.
Okay.
I think we should be appropriate amounts of variability for the golfer. That's and by the way, just so you know, your golfer's performance on the golf course will tell you how well practice is structured. It's not rocket science, but it's like in our business, maybe it's in the world, maybe it's not this, but we always want to be it's this way or it's that way. You're a Republican, you're a Democrat, and it's all divided. And that's so anytime, you know this, man, anytime it's one way, run. You're getting bad information. If it's got to be like this, the information is clearly cannot be correct.
Yeah, almost every question I get when people ask me well, is this better or that? But like my answer always pretty much is depends. And then people hate that as an answer. I'm like, look, I don't have enough information to decide. But there are very few absolutes. I mean, and that's the reality of the situation, right? It is what
Totally
it is.
agree. And one of the things that I hear about an awful lot, I had this discussion with a guy who's written a bestseller, and he asked me a good question. Why is it that golfers want to do so much block practice? And I said, well, what's your sport? I already do. And he said, well, it's soccer. I go, okay, so in soccer, does the environment change every instant? Like you have defenders. You have the ball, you don't have the ball. You have a partner over here to pass to. So the environment is changing all of the time.
Yeah, the game is random.
The game is random.
Yeah.
Is golf that random?
No.
In fact, no. You have plenty of time to make every play. Every single play in golf can be assembled. So I liken this golf to being, well, I was a classical guitar major in college, and in classical guitar, you definitely have notes you're supposed to play as beautifully, and you're free to interpret them as you wish, but you're definitely playing these notes as well as you possibly can. You are going for perfect, or as close to that as possible. On the other hand, might be jazz. We used to have a saying, close enough for jazz in classical guitar school. In jazz, you are kind of interplaying between you and the bass player, you and the keyboard player, you and the drummer. We're having just a blast, and you are kind of going back and forth and reacting. But in golf, it's different. In golf, I'm not reacting to anybody. The environment is not changing during the play. Yes, it gets colder during the day. The wind picks up, but it doesn't do it all in the middle of your golf swing, usually. Soccer, we keep using soccer and using that kind of information toward a radically different skill. In soccer, you are positively reacting to people all the time. That while the field doesn't change, every instant of the game, the entire game is changing. People are coming at you. This guy gets open. This guy's not open. The goal's open. I don't think it's safe, fair, or accurate to compare the way we would prepare for soccer versus golf.
Yeah, it's team sports with a moving object, hockey, soccer, basketball. I mean, any of those type of games are totally random in their situation. Where the position of all the players on the field, where the ball is. I mean, everything is changing literally every second. So, I mean, that's a totally different situation where golf, you step up to the ball, it's not moving. You hit it when you want to go. There's no time, there's nobody saying, okay, hit it now. I mean, you go when you want to go, and the ball's just waiting for you to make your move. It's a totally different environment, and hence the learning, the teaching, the practicing needs to be appropriate to that.
Now, you still need to calibrate all the shots you're going to need for golf, right? You still need to calibrate, so you need to make sure that you have some component of it is more like a game-like fashion. And my favorite thing is get off that damn driving range, get on the golf course and scrimmage. What other sport in the world do we never, ever, ever scrimmage? We have a lesson, then we go and play in a high stakes environment. So we never scrimmage our plays. So I want people practicing on the golf course a lot more so they can have 2 or 3 drives off the hole, then go and hit, 2 or 3 approach shots into the hole if there's time. And that would be a wonderful way to blend this block to more like the real game practice.
Yeah, I mean, look, golf's the only game in the world where you don't practice on the actual field of play. Right? Basketball players practice basketball on a basketball court. Tennis players practice tennis on a tennis court. Golfers practice golf on a driving range. It's like the only sport in the world that does that. And so you do have this disconnect, and you do hear from a lot of amateur golfers how often they'll say, "Oh, I was hitting it great on the range, but I can't take it to the course."
Right? Because they never practice taking it to the course.
Correct.
There's an extra step in there. There's an extra step toward having a lesson. Finding out, that works. Now go on the golf course with no scorecard and make yourself do it. Damn it.
Yeah. Look.
Then when you can do it, then add a scorecard later.
Yeah. Look, I mean, and Mike Hebron, is a big science motor learning kind of guy himself. His whole thing is just play golf to get better at golf, right? Play golf to practice golf. He's like, you just got to play more golf and get off the driving range if you want to get better. And it's kind of his philosophy.
It's a crash test dummy. She doesn't know it though. Yeah. She's learning golf purely on the golf course. This is her first winter of having a regular golf lesson every week. But other than this, she has actually done all of her stuff on the golf course. And she became quite a good golfer in just 1 year of really getting after it.
Right.
And I think it's because all of her practice was either beat dad or scrimmage on the golf course. And I would give her the choice. Do you want to scrimmage today, or do you want to whoop up on your dad?
No, everybody wants to whoop up on Johnny D. So that sounds like more fun. All right, let's wrap it up here, because I think we can go on and on forever. But I think a big part of this, I want you to, before we wrap it up, I want you to talk a little bit about the Skilled Coaching Alliance, which is an online program that you've put together with Will Wu, and where people can get information on that, and a little bit of the details about what's going on there.
Well, the Skilled Coaching Alliance with Will is a blend of motor learning science. So he gives presentations, all lives online. He gives a presentation on maybe BS filters and motor learning. And then he and I will talk back and forth on how it applies to golf. I'll do a presentation on making connections to your student. And then he and I will talk back and forth on that. So it's presentations with discussions. And the idea is this: golf has been super good to me. I earn a fine living teaching golf. I owe golf a ton. The fact that I can make this kind of living teaching golf is fairly stunning to me. But I also love it, and I love helping people. And for me, the competitive juniors that go on to play golf in college, it's a big part of that. Seeing kids grow in their confidence, it's huge. So this is me and Will giving back to golf. So the average teaching pro, makes about $50,000 a year teaching golf, which is wholly unacceptable to me. And what I think, and this is going to come out wrong, I know it is. If you know me, there's not much arrogance in me, and you know me. But what I want these folks to do, if they're putting out a good enough product, their raving fans will build their business for them. That's the answer. You can play the internet game all you want, but the real answer is you turn out a good product. My whole career started with one kid who got really, really good in 1 year. And then that success built my entire business for me. And now it's an ongoing machine now. But I want to help them do that by helping their people play the game better. Not just swing the golf club better, but actually play the game better. And I think we can do our feedback so far, man, has been pretty phenomenal. People are loving it. It's just a different approach to, we talk teaching versus coaching. I don't know if that's important, but toward coaching people toward better performance, more fun. And it's our way of helping the game of golf wins.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, this is a piece that just hasn't been talked about enough, hasn't been integrated into how people learn to be a great teacher. We started with all the swing stuff and mechanics. The eventually people started understanding the body needs to be able to do things. That was layered in. And now this is the next piece, and you have to be able to start putting all the pieces together if you want to be at the top of your game. So if people want to get information and go through the course, like where do they go? Go online. What do they have to, how do they get more information?
SkilledCoachingalliance.com is that's the home. The Instagram is Skilled Coaching Alliance as well, and I'm on Facebook. Will's on Facebook, and then my email is johndunigangolf@gmail.com, and Dunigan is Dunigan, and we're here to help. Our hope is to really have a massively positive influence on the success of our coaches and the game and the courses where our coaches work. Because if everybody plays better and is happier, everybody wins. What a good deal, right?
Yeah, no, look, it's perfect. I mean, I can't recommend this, program enough to any of the pros out there who are listening. Look, I think even if you're just a super, into learning about golf as a golfer and you're just into it for yourself, you probably can learn a lot just as a golfer taking this course that you can take and use yourself to how you practice, how you prepare, for your own game. I think anybody can benefit. Both of these guys are good friends of mine and super smart guys. So anybody who's out there listening, certainly I highly recommend you checking it out. Hence why I had these guys on here to start talking a bit about these ideas. I mean, this podcast can go on for 10 hours, but that's really what that class is all about. So it's not my place to do all of that. So I hope that everybody goes out, check out the Skilled Coaching Alliance. What Will and John are doing is amazing. So John, I appreciate you for coming on. Great stuff as always, and I look forward. I'm sure you and I will talk again soon.
Thanks for having me, Ben. Thanks for all you do for us golf pros to make us better. And plan on seeing Kid Delicious, little Mary Dunigan, very soon.
I appreciate it. And you'll be getting a call from the kid I told you about as well. So, all right. Good. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you next time. This is the Ben Shear Golf Podcast. Thanks for listening. Please give us a follow on social and check out our website at www.bensheargolf.com for all of our programs and products. Also, be on the lookout for our next episode as we continue to discuss the best of everything